It is time for our scheduled work session, Tuesday, August 8th at 1 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors Executive Conference Room. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion. Roll call, District 1.
Crosby is here.
Perfect. District 2.
Supervisor English is present.
And I am here to represent Supervisor John here to represent District 3. Members of the public may also attend this meeting via Microsoft Teams computer or mobile app. And I see many have joined us, and that is if you have any questions, you can call 520-432-9200. Work sessions are a time for county staff to inform and discuss agenda items with the Board of Supervisors, and public comment will not be taken. We have our road department, engineering, and the board here.
Solid waste.
Solid waste,
yeah,
and fleet. And fleet. They're all here. Today we're going to look at their quarterly work plans, their updates, and we will begin, if you want to just kind of say your name and what you do right before you start talking, or if anyone puts something up in the discussion, just kind of introduce yourself quickly. Okay, so we'll start with highways. Mr. Haverty.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, Marty Haverty, Public Works Director. I'd really like to give you an overview of what we did last year. We just finished up and we're in the first quarter of this year, so I'd kind of like to give you a little bit of what we did last year, and that's kind of what this relates to. One thing that I didn't do was provide you with a handout for light fleet, and I want to just give you some factoids on light fleet. Basically, we have 410 vehicles in our light fleet, okay? And with those 410 vehicles, to complete the mission, county employees drove 5,250,000 miles last year. Pretty large number. The fuel to complete that task, we burnt 340,000 gallons of fuel. And basically, we had a mile per gallon of 15.4 miles per gallon. That's kind of deceiving. There's different departments that have different miles per gallon on their vehicles. Board of Supervisors on the vehicles there, it's about 31, and it gets all the way down into CCSO with 12, 13. That really pulls that average down. So we do get decent gas mileage across the board, but when we have a lot of idle time in certain positions and things like that, then that mile per gallon goes down pretty drastically. Average vehicle in the county fleet drove 12,000 miles during the past year of those 410. Those 410 vehicles, with that mileage, we service every 6,000 miles. So that requires us to perform about 870 services during the year. We had 5 mechanics previously, and the last 2 employees are servicing 870 vehicles on just a basic service type thing. So those guys are very busy. They're very hardworking, and they do a great job for us. So
I didn't ask you a question. Talking about the 4. We're buying new vehicles all the time because the sheriff gets grants for new vehicles. How much time does it take to I use the word kit out because I don't know how to explain it. Do all the things to it that the deputy's vehicle needs, because I've heard the sheriff complain, well, we got the vehicles, but they're not ready yet.
Yeah.
So how long does it take when he puts that burden on the light fleet?
It's been changing, and it's really slowed down in the past year. A lot of law enforcement agencies got grants for vehicles, and they're pushing them through it's called upfitting. And they upfit them, put all the lights, sirens, and bells and whistles on them, and the vehicle wrap. And this last time with these vehicles that we ordered, we have several of them in that we're just waiting for the upfitter. We just got one back last week, one of the first ones to go through the upfitter, but we've been waiting up to 6 months on these things.
You send them to have that?
Yes, we send them.
You don't do it in-house?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They put the radios in and everything else. So
where do they have to go?
We have a couple vendors. Fred could help me there.
Airwave is in Tucson, Airwave Outfitters, and then there's Pride and MHQ that are up in Phoenix.
And so we work with those guys and try to get the best return, get them back the quickest,
Right.
and find them. It's been slowing us down and whatnot. So
But that's also on when it's submitted from the sheriff's office about what they want in those vehicles as well. right?
absolutely.
So it's the time of, there's no standard form of upfit. You know, they're like, well, I want this and this and that.
CCSO upfits are different than City of Tucson
Okay.
upfits or Pima County upfits, so they want different things on the equipment, so upfitter has to order out. And if they have like 5 CCSO vehicles and 35 Maricopa County, those guys are going to try to push towards getting Maricopa down. And so we kind of get put on the back burner. And Fred's been pretty aggressive with these 3 vendors, trying to get these guys moving these things. And finally, they just loosened it up, and we got one back. So we should see them start filing in here pretty soon. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, but we probably have 6 vehicles out there in our back lot ready to be upfitted.
Correct.
Well, I heard him complaining about the new trucks, that they've got the special bumpers and all that kind of stuff.
That's on the upcoming pit maneuver vehicles for the grants. It's just been ordered.
They've just been ordered from, and they haven't even been built yet,
Okay.
because they asked for us to order them in their budget. So we put the order in, and once the factory does build them, we'll get them and do the upfits on them through the vendors. You know.
Well, that clarifies it, because I just wanted to make sure that our staffing was what we needed in order to do the things that we do for not only the sheriff, but every other department.
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we are properly staffed, and we moved from our vehicles being serviced at a 4,000 mile interval to 6,000. That allows our staff to spend a little bit more time on each vehicle and more thoroughly go through it. So
Who cleans them?
we have a porter, part-time individual that comes in and washes cars. It's kind of been hit and miss. In the past, we didn't have them. We had the inmates before.
Right.
Hired a part-timer, didn't work out, brought in a new part-timer. So we have one on staff now that cleans vehicles. And a lot of employees will clean their own or run through the car wash. So,
Thank you.
any other questions on light fleet?
No.
Okay. Let's see, what's in front of me? We'll go into the next one.
You started at the bottom and working your way up, so heavy fleet, I guess, would be next.
Yeah, I don't really have any update for heavy fleet right now. I will next time. I think we can get all our numbers together and give you a pretty thorough update on heavy fleet, what they did in the last year. I think one of the important things is the fuel burn. I just glossed over that on light fleet. We burned 340,000 gallons of fuel. If we get an uptick of, you can look at the number, and you get an uptick of 10 cents or 20 cents a gallon on it, it really affects the budget, and most of this is general fund. So we've been pretty fortunate through the past year that we've had a pretty stable, absolutely cover our costs, pay back the board what the money that we owed them at the time, and be able to move forward and fund this next cell that we're developing right now. Right across the very top, you can see year-end 2022 and then year-end 2023. You look at the tons that we brought in, and we've been very stable within the system, 81,000, right in that range. And really that equates to about 2,000 pounds per household. That's the national average that people will dispose of 1 ton of trash per household. And if you note, kind of going off on a tangent, our free dump day, when we do that, we're giving half of that away. We're giving the people the opportunity to dispose of 1,000 pounds free when they dispose of 2,000 pounds per household on the average across the nation, and that kind of lines up with the numbers that we receive here. So we bring in 81,000, charge $64 a ton, and last year we brought in $6 million. This year we brought in about 20,000 more. So we're kind of right on line with that. Where we had some differences were expenses. to get employees back up to market, we increased our wages by about 200,000. We're trying to age our fleet and trying to not replace so quickly, especially on our yellow iron or our heavy equipment. We're trying to keep that in service longer. So our heavy fleet equipment and maintenance budget really goes up. The next step of this is to decrease our replacement budget. So we're going to try to do a little bit of a swap there, move money into the heavy fleet parts and everything else that we're going to be replacing on this older equipment, and make up for that by taking some money away from our replacement account, because we're not going to be replacing so often.
Do we have mostly equipment that we own, or is it lease?
We own everything.
So we don't lease anymore?
We don't have any leases whatsoever. Yeah, we're able to pay as we go. So we're in really good financial condition. The next line, the 206,000, that's what we have to put in per law by our permit every year for the potential or future closing of that landfill. And we have probably $2 million in the bank right now, just sitting there that we can't touch. It just has to sit there to show that we have the financial capability down the road in 50 years to close this. So every year, that number is really determined by that 81,000 up above the amount that we put away. The transfer out, we increased that substantially this year to make sure that we had money for cell 5 development. So we got pretty aggressive. You look up above, operation and maintenance, we decreased that. We were scraping together every nickel to run our operation, to make sure that we had money to build this next cell without coming to you and asking for a loan. So we went 900,000 there, and then we always are working to improve the transfer station. So we have a capital account setting aside and put 200,000 there. So if you look at the blue line, the second blue line, left to right, last year our expenses were 5.3. This year they jumped up to 6 million. So a little bit concerning to me, but we're going to be fine. You look at the gross profit. Last year we were at 718,000. We're at 54,000 now. A lot of that can be attributed to the aggressiveness that we moved money into that development account that won't happen the next couple years. So I think we're pretty stable in that respect, but at the same time, we're going to be increasing wages to make sure our employees are at market or close to market. So we do have a decrease in profits. One of the things I do, the second half of this, is really getting down in the weeds, but it's everything's set cost per ton. So when we pay labor, when we do anything, we're going cost per ton and looking at so that we know exactly every ton that comes in, okay, $27 of that is for our labor. $7 is for operation and maintenance, and so on. So we take a real close look at that, and you get down to the bottom grain, at the very, very bottom grain, go left to right. We're getting real thin on that money. So that kind of is an indicator that we may have to look someday at increasing the tipping fee, but we just really want to monitor costs throughout the year and grow through.
If you get more tonnage, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a great thing.
Because I know when people started not, then we had a slump, in solid waste. And people would usually think that, well, if they don't get much, then they don't have to spend much, but it seems like we have to spend more when we get less.
Absolutely, per ton.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why we break it down per ton. We have fixed costs throughout this thing, and you have variable costs that kind of convert over to fixed costs. And when you increase the tonnage coming in, you're spreading the revenue for those over a lot larger area, and it really decreases the cost per ton. And you can really roll then. If we had 100,000 coming into the system, we wouldn't have to increase our cost substantially at all, but our revenues would increase. So,
and we get nothing from recycle.
We do. We make probably 150 to 200,000 a year recycling metal. Mm-hmm. And We have Robert Hill. He's our new operations superintendent. He's went out and he's contacted vendors to get our balers fixed. We have 3 of them that are working now, and so we're starting to bale cardboard a lot more aggressively. We just talked to a vendor yesterday that really wants to buy it and work with us on selling it. So I think that we're going to be kind of making a turn on the recycling of cardboard. It's going to work out pretty well, which they're going to have to, we only get $35 a ton for the sale of cardboard. In the past, several years ago, we were getting $300, $400 a ton. But we get the $65 a ton up front. That covers our cost to process the cardboard, and then $35 a ton on the sales side. So we're making good money. Where we're really making money is we're not having to put that cardboard in a truck.
Right.
And that truck, we can put trash in instead of cardboard, and then the truck runs to landfill, and it's hauling a lot more dense, a lot more efficient load because we're getting paid for all that, and that's only trash going in the landfill. So we're not filling up our landfill with the cardboard. We're not trucking the cardboard. We're actually selling it for a very tiny, tiny amount. So we're pushing that to try to extend the life of this next cell. One thing, talking about solid waste, is we built the last cell in 2017 at a cost of about $2.1 million. And we've been able, through our management and our workers, to be able to make that thing last almost 8 years. We're pushing up, trying to get 8 years out of this cell. Cell 1 lasted 2 years. Cell 3 was about 5. Cell 2 was about 5. Cell 3 was about 6 or 6.5, but we're right at 8. And when we can get that much out of that cell, it's money in the bank for us. Since the landfill was implemented back in 2001, we brought in 1.6 million 1.6 million tons of refuse into that facility. If you average what we received as tipping fees for that, and say it's $50, that's about 245 million that we've received out of those 4 cells so far. And there's potential. We're cited to build 12 cells. If we look at the 8 years this cell lasted, and then we multiply that by another 7 cells, I predict that we could go another 56 to 60 years out there at that site. Now, we certainly can if it's not managed properly and they're filling up cells in 3 or 4 years. But if we can extend the life of every one of those cells, we can get that much more out of it. And it's really, that land is worth so much money. I've been talking with my guys about you're able to site a landfill in Cochise County and get all the permits and everything else. That 240 acres of land could be worth $1 billion in gross revenues. And so it's very, very, very big business. And how we manage that is very imperative to how we can take advantage of that piece of property.
Guess who was on the board when we cited that sucker? We took all the slings and arrows,
Yeah, somebody that can go through that and get that done, it's a huge, huge deal.
Yeah.
They did it up in Marana, and the guy is a billionaire. The one that was cited in Marana, as soon as he got it cited by the city council, by the county, everyone else, he turned around and sold it to Waste Management. Boom. That's all he did. Just
I
work
didn't
through
get
all
time
that.
out of it.
You didn't?
Just the slings and arrows.
But I tell you, to manage this, and I talk about us managing this properly, Jason and now Robert, we do a quarterly density study to make sure that we're compacting that trash and getting as much squeezed into the area as we possibly can. So we have a company come down and they fly their drones over and do an analysis. And the last time we did it was 1,160 pounds per cubic yard that we had compacted into the area. So we want to take up as little area as possible, and then you got to cover it and everything else. But those are kind of our performance criteria that we hold our employees to and our supervisors to, is to make sure that we're managing that properly.
Have we looked at anything in particular that One point in time, we had a real problem with mattresses. They don't seem to compact very well.
No, they don't.
And Fort Huachuca was bound and determined to get rid of all theirs.
They had several they wanted to
Yeah.
close up.
So is there something special in the regulations? Because I mean, are they toxic, or why can't you just dig a hole for mattresses? I guess is my question.
We've tried several different things. One of them, when we had inmates, they stripped the mattresses completely off the spring. And
Most of them don't have springs anymore.
no, they don't. But then we sold the springs, and then we had the Whetstone Fire come out and do training and burn all the
Oh, okay.
material. But then it sent up, there was a lot of foam in it, so it sent up toxic fumes. So we had to stop that. So we've tried a few different things, and we ended up having to bury them. And it seems like Cochise County is the capital of mattress replacement, especially, especially when they gave all the checks out to everybody.
Mhm.
The
Go back to
government checks,
mattresses.
it was TV boxes and mattresses that were flowing through the landfill. Yeah, so it'd be nice if we could find something. If you got any ideas? I'm all ears. So that's pretty much solid waste. Please. We can go turn to Jason's work. Well, let's go these small sheets here first, if you don't mind. It has chip seal, fog seal. Basically, I wanted to let you know what we did in the last fiscal year as far as chip seal, fog seal. I'm not sure which one you have, but in front of me, I have the chip seal one.
Mhm.
And if you go down to the bottom, that kind of tells the tale. 85 miles of road we chip sealed, did a maintenance chip seal on from July 1st to end of June this year. So
Did you do a double chip seal on any of these?
no, we didn't. We just did single chip on all of them. Correct, Jason?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 85 miles. In our system, we have 670 miles of roads, and my goal every year is to try to get 70 miles chipped, and that's 10%. So every 10 years, in theory, we would roll around and do another chip seal. In between then, we would do a fog seal every 3 years and then roll up into that 10th year and do a chip. We were pretty aggressive, but the past superintendent, we didn't get a lot produced, so we kind of made up for past time and got a little bit more done this year. Okay, and then on our fog seal, we kind of fell short of the goal. Not by much, but we had 132 miles of road that we fog sealed and chipped, or fog sealed and then striped. And some of this is the roads that we chipped also. So right now we're doing a single chip and then doing a fog seal over it. But then also we did other roads that the pavement was starting to oxidize. We were starting to see some wear and tear on it. So we went out and did the fog seal on top of it. And with that, we did 132 miles. I'd like to get about close to 200 miles. With 670 miles, we could hit every road about every 3 years, using that period. It doesn't always work, but that's kind of where we'd like to go. And this is excluding roads that we have issues with that Jackie's going to talk about, Bell Ranch and some of these other roads that really need other kind of treatments rather than what we're doing. So just in our basic maintenance and our assets that we have out there, we feel like with this plan that we're going to be able to protect our roads pretty well. And we're going to be pretty good without huge capital outlays for our basic roads in the long term.
Is the price of the fog going up a lot?
I think Jason could.
Not really. It's an uptake toward the end of last year, but now it's kind of back downward.
That's stable. And, we were real worried about fuel too, and fuel's really pretty stable. We'll see little bitty upticks every once in a while, every week. We get those, and I kind of see fog and the chip oil the same way. Yeah, so it's pretty stable. We're having problems getting chips. Chips is kind of a shortage. A lot of people are well, not a lot, but you got vendors coming down from Tucson and Phoenix hitting up local vendors like Maddox down in Douglas, Clump out in Wilcox Rock and Stand, and some of those guys are coming down and buying stuff from them where they weren't before. And so every once in a while, Jason has to smooth talk these folks to try to get chips for our projects and get them back on the ground. So and it works pretty well. If we can turn to the Gantt chart, the line running right down the middle, the solid black line, is the start of this fiscal year. So Jason did this, and he's doing a good job on it. He doesn't have the training. He's just kind of learning it as he goes, and it's a real skill to work in this Microsoft project program. It is tough. So he's done a really good job doing it. In Bisbee, well, let me just preface this with, we did really well up to June. As we move into this next fiscal year, and this part, kind of the fall area, July 1 on, we're probably going to slow down a little bit, and predictably so because of the monsoons that haven't quite hit yet, but they're going to be hitting us. Last year, August 20th is when we had the heavy floods in Elfrida and whatnot. So the monsoon last year really didn't hit us until August 20th, so we see that coming. But we still have work planned. We're just not going to be as aggressive as we were the first part from April up into June. We got our work done, or the majority of it. We just want to move on, get as much done as we can. But at the same time, we're going to be working flood damage. We're going to be working a lot of mowing. Our grading operations are going to be out there repairing storm damage and whatnot. So moving into this and what we have planned, up in the Bisbee area, Presidential Estates, it's over by the Western Regional Landfill. It's way back there. It's Saunders Road, Washington, Truman, all those roads. Jason's crews are set and ready to go and get that done. We're going to do a little bit of work at the Bisbee transfer station. Solid Waste is going to be paying for it. We're going to be providing the labor, but that's on the apron coming into the facility. If you come off Tollville Road and turn down there, it's like driving in downtown Iraq. It's really rough and it's terrible. It's something that City of Bisbee should probably do, but our trucks are always in and out of there. And so if we can improve that so our customers, our citizens, and our trucks can go in there without tearing everything up, we're going to go in and make those repairs. And then also on that is Sagebrush Road, which is the road that goes into the landfill. That road was built in 2001. I think it was a triple chip. I think we may have put another layer chip on it, but it's held up really well. And if you look at all the roads in the county and heavy truck traffic, when we talk about that, and you can look at Sagebrush and go, oh my God, this road is unbelievable. It's held up so well. It's got good drainage and everything else, so it works well. So we're going to put another single layer chip on it, do some asphalt, whatnot, and we'll get that paid for out of solid waste, but our work crews will be working on that. But overall, through this whole thing, we're going to be really concentrating on making sure we're ready to respond to storm damage and repair that storm damage and get these right-of-ways knocked down once they really start growing. So we go into Benson. We don't have a whole lot planned. They're going to be rolling over and helping Bisbee over near the landfill. We have some work that we're going to be doing down in Douglas Elfrida, and that's going to be finishing up Kings Highway. We went in and just striped several roads, or bogged down striped several roads over in Elfrida, and we were able to get those right before school started, so we got the school zones in and everything else. I don't know if you've been by the Elfrida school, but I think it looks pretty good, and it's just in time for school to start. Then we got work that we're doing out of the Wilcox up on Bell Ranch Road. Bell Ranch Road is a road that the dairy uses constantly. They come off the fields, they go onto it, and then they're hauling across. Rich went out there with Jackie and Paul Correa and I and talked to the dairy, and there's several spots that we need to patch, and we already got them tore up. We're coming back in and reinforcing them, getting the base back to where it needs to be, but it just started raining on us the other day when we got them opened up. So it's going to be a little longer to get those fixed, but there's several patches we need to make on that road over there. And that's pretty much it. You guys have any questions on that?
I just want to,
Tom Crosby, District 1. I got a question. I'll take my turn, madam.
I just wanted to compliment you on mowing and how it's always on your schedule. The state, I think, has forgotten that they have mowers or ever mowed, and it is a big contrast when the state highways and our highways.
Yeah, I think for the maintenance side of this, it's a real priority to make sure that you're not driving down a tunnel. You have all those weeds and trees growing up around you, and to get these right-of-ways knocked down, and at least you can pull off and be safe, and you know where you're pulling off into. We don't have a lot of right-of-way everywhere, but I think we need to take care of it. The next stage of this, and we're not there yet, once we can sustain this mowing, I'd really like to move into adopt a highway. And I think I've mentioned that here before, that I'd like to move there, but we're not ready for it yet. We need to get a little better on mowing and move forward with that. So,
Second question, you met with the dairy and they're still financing their portion, right, of the repairs. Because before they helped us with materials and we did the work. And I'm guessing we're still doing all the work, but are they helping us with
we
materials
haven't
still or not?
We haven't had that discussion or received any money from them at all. And it's becoming a real financial burden for us because these roads are ones that we have to maintain 20 times more often than we do a regular road because of that traffic. So it is becoming a real financial burden for.
Well, every now and then I have a friendly conversation with one of them, so I can bring it up.
Yeah, I talk to them quite often, and yeah, they want to help out with material or whatever, but it's not a real help. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the highways.
Well, we have Mr. Crosby waiting to ask the question.
Good presentation, Mr. Haverty. I like the work that your department does, and I know it's never ending, as we see by your line chart there. 1 year just goes into the next one. I think probably last time we were looking at charts like this, I asked about an asphalt grinding machine, and you thought the cost of such an asphalt grinding machine or milling or whatever you called it was about $1 million. So I was wondering if the county was to purchase such a thing, would the state and the city pay for the county to use it on, for instance, state roads around Walmart? And would it help to pay for the machine, or do we just got to wait for the state to get around to it, or what?
Yeah, with asphalt grinding machines, usually, and Jackie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, please. We have chip seal roads over 90% of the county, and those are county highways. And a lot of times the thickness of these chip seal roads might be a ½ inch to an inch, or some of them that we've chipped multiple times might be 1.5 inches. So we wouldn't be able to really get a lot of benefit out of a grinder or any type a thing like that. You agree?
Correct. And then when the state puts out a contract to mill and fill a road to grind it and put the asphalt in, the contractor does that. So they wouldn't have two contracts. They have to, purchasing rules from the state. And then, but the road in front of Walmart and the hospital, that is to be done this winter, early spring by ADOT. It was on the program.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. And now I have just, you don't have to tell me real soon, but I'm kind of wondering what would be a cost estimate for 2 lanes of 2 or 3 miles of severe washboard with fist size rocks to quarter of a fist size rocks. So that's 2 lanes, 2 or 3 miles of severe washboard. And like I said, I don't have to have the answer now, just whenever you can come up with it.
Dirt road or paved road?
It's dirt. Severe washboard, 2 or 3 miles. Severe. Like it needs total reconstruction. And I wouldn't even venture to say that the materials that are there are sufficient to reconstruct it. In other words, you just got a bunch of native soil plus all the other rocks and junk that somebody came in and put there, I don't know how long ago.
So the question is to build?
So you'd have to go in and rebuild it?
Yeah, I said reconstruct. So I'm assuming that if you got something that is severe washboard, just filling in the low spots by grading it is not going to hardly do anything.
If you're talking about bringing in material to make it with an aggregate base, about 400,000 a mile.
Okay, thank you. I will note that.
Not cheap.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Thank you, Mr. Haverty.
That's all I have unless you guys have any other questions.
I'm just really glad that you come and report to us regularly. That makes a big difference. And then your little plan every week that gets sent out.
Which I didn't send
really
this
helps.
week. Did you notice?
I did.
Yeah. I figured I was going to be here today, so
I kind of
All
figured.
right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go ahead
I
and
just assumed
vote.
that.
The meeting is over early.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Not bad. Still have another meeting at 2.
Thankfully, I have busy days.
We have another meeting today at 2
We're done?
o'clock in this conference room, and it's a work session, engineering and flood control update, and this meeting's adjourned.